Go. More than. Hello, hello.
Hello,
What's up?
this is Big Boy Talk. And today we're going to talk about fear.
Yes, we are.
And it's interesting that each of us had kind of different ideas on fear.
Yes.
One of us from a relationship standpoint, maybe, and one of us from a social engineering standpoint or something like that.
And
Yeah.
one of the idea is a more philosophical one.
Mhm.
The idea that you fear the unknown. People fear the things that they don't know. Because if you've been to, I don't know, if people fear going to the dentist. But if you've been there, you know it's going to happen. You know all the drills. You know all the procedures, and you know
You
the
expect
pain.
some pain, maybe.
If you expect pain, then you won't fear it as much. The doctors as well.
Maybe it's a situation in which you don't have a lot of control. But for me, honestly, when I was a kid and going to the dentist, to go with this example, there was pain involved. The technology wasn't here yet and there was no anesthesia. But in the last 5 to 10 years, the dentist's offices are really good and it's no problem for me to go. Even though I know I don't have control and the doctor might slip up, I know that there's never any pain, really. And I know he's a professional.
So because you know things,
Yeah.
you don't fear it anymore.
Yeah. You could say that knowledge casts away fear, or gives you the courage necessary.
Yes, and probably one of the biggest fears that we all have is dying.
Okay.
And I think one of the main components of this fear is the unknown. Because if you die in a video game, you know what will happen next. You don't fear that.
Yeah.
Or if you break something, I don't know, you have a phone that is valuable, you don't fear that you will drop it. You take care of it. You have some emotion, but that's not necessarily fear.
It's not something that freezes you up or
Yes.
causes an emotional state.
Yeah, when you handle it, you don't think, oh, if I break it now, what will happen? You know what will happen if you break it, so you kind of deal with it. You get a case for it, and you cover it up, and you say, okay, I'll hope for the best. You make a backup data for all your contact and all your messages, and after that you say, okay, it's expensive, but what
You could
happens?
say that you want the experience more than you fear the loss of it.
Yes, true. So then you don't fear what will happen. I'm telling you this with death because my son last week told me something that made me realize I was the same when I was his age. He told me that, Daddy, when will you die? When I'll be a grandpa, you will die, right? I said, okay, yes. He says, but I don't want you to. I want for us to die together. And I was the same when I was his age, because I think most of it I feared losing the people I cared about most. So I said, when I was a kid, I said, if it is so my parents die, I want to die with them. I don't want to live in this world without them. And that was the fear of the unknown and some selfishness because I thought that my pain losing them was so great that I want to lose everything just not to experience that pain.
You'd rather lose everything.
Yes.
Yeah, not experience that pain. That's interesting. And you were saying before we started that maybe some of the, or maybe an explanation for some sacrifices that people make is explained by that, or
Probably. I was playing with an idea. We say that if you truly love someone, you are able to sacrifice for that person. You would take a bullet from. I would catch a grenade for you. You would rather die than see the person you love die. So you will be ready to make that switch. And first of all, you would say this is the ultimate love. Because you love them so much, you want them to live and you to
sacrifice.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what if this is a fear or an inability for me to live with the pain of losing the thing I love? What if, when in that moment I say, instead of him dying, I rather die than live a life without that person? Or it's a shocking idea, because it makes you question every sacrifice or love act in the past, because before that you will say this is selfishness, or what's the opposite of that? Selflessness. No. So which one
it's
is
interesting. I don't know if I
philosophical
fully
idea.
agree. So yeah, you were saying you were just playing with the idea. It made me think of something that Martin Luther King said. I think that a life, it was something like, if you're not willing to die for anything, then you're not really living. So a life without
the cause, right?
without a cause, is not really worth living. And I think there's some truth to that, and I think that there were people who sacrificed for ideas, and that was totally selfless. But you're talking more about relationships, and
Yeah, I haven't thought about that. Because when you sacrifice your life for an idea, it's not that you can live without that idea. So yeah, I have to get back on this one. I have to crunch it a bit more.
It's an interesting one. Yeah.
But you were saying from a social standpoint, the fear of in our daily lives.
Yeah, the two things that came to my mind when we settled on fear as a subject were the fear of missing out, which is something we read about a lot, especially since technology is so readily available. And the other one is one that we talked about a little bit last week, I think.
But explain FOMO, the fear of missing out first.
FOMO, yeah.
FOMO. FOMO, yes.
Yeah, so that's basically an explanation for why we're addicted to technology, I think, addicted to our phones. And that's the fear of not checking your phone very often, because you expect something important to be there every time. And if you're not going to check it, you're going to miss out on, I don't know exactly what, a big announcement, some major news or something like that. And it's kind of stupid, but it's something that's used against us, maybe, let's say, by the people who are selling us apps and websites and stuff like that. And considering the many hours that each of us spends on their phone every day, it's working.
Yeah, I knew the term FOMO from the stock market, because when the prices are low, people feel the need to buy in, because otherwise you would say, okay, if I don't buy now, not necessarily when the prices are low. The opposite is when the market is growing, you feel like, okay, it's going to grow forever, I have to buy now. And that makes the market go up and more until it becomes a bubble and it bursts. So that this is how I know the term fear of missing out is, okay, everybody is buying houses now and the prices are going up. This is what happened to me in 2008. Everybody is buying, I have to buy myself. So I bought just at the peak of the prices, then it went down. Yeah, I missed out on
and a lot of good things.
But the thing of fear of missing out on our cell phones, isn't this some, let me use my words correctly, the news channels, they went from being from reporting the news to becoming an entertainment sites or TV programs. You go there not to find out what happened. You go there to be entertained, to be upset, to be glad that something happened. You see the life of rich people, the failures of people. You see sports. You see all these mixed emotions. But before that, you would see that in a movie or a theater play or something like that. But now you go to the news and you expect the same thing. And what they have to do to sell more TVs or more ad space is they have to cater to your needs. So they play only the most vile stories, the most outrageous stories. So you can say clickbait, but you would click or you will read more, because this is what we as society want. Something that is extraordinary. But in the long run, if you look like what happens today, we can monitor 3 days of our lives and see all the major news titles and see in a month or 2 months which ones really had an impact. And most of them are just not worth it. But you feel outraged, you feel disappointed. Look what he did, look what that guy did, and it affects your person, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and I think it's always been a fight for our attention. Even when people started selling goods and services in a basic way, they still needed people to come in order to sell, so they had to get their attention. But now in a world where we can be messaged instantly on our phones, our attention is still the prize. And they're giving, you said it, they're giving us what we asked for. So we can't really complain, because as a society, we tend to click on stuff that's not really relevant, but it's maybe a scandal, maybe something cute, not really things that are worth it or that lead to development or things like that. And let's face it, it's easier to consume them, especially after a day of work, especially when you're tired.
And we live in a more or less plush society. It's quite safe. So we have to feel threatened. We have to feel like something is going on in our lives. We cannot have a society, even though all of us say we want no bad things to happen, everything to go smoothly. We say that, but we enjoy looking at scandals. We enjoy looking at failures or something like this. Because this reflects our life. I met the guy who is 82 years. I told you, he's from England, and he told me when he was 4 years old, it was a Second World War, and his father took him.
When he was 4?
4 years old. Yes.
I think that was the
Second War, 1941.
Oh, if he's 82 now, 80 years ago,
Yes.
it's not okay. That it's close.
He was born in 36.
Okay. Oh, so in 1940. Okay.
In 1940 or 41, he lived in London, and his father took him on a hill to see the bombings.
Whoa.
And the harbor where the sugar factories were bombed, and
Wow.
in all that people died a lot, but the kids had no idea what they had no fear, because for them they had hammers, and they went and got candy, because the sugar melted and molasses melted and made candy, hard candy, big stones of candy, and for them that was a good day because they had no idea and they had no fear of the Germans. So in that society, if you think what those kids experienced and what we experienced or our kids will experience, you will say, okay, people had different threats, different things to fear. So sometimes I think it's quite normal to push those stories that give us something to fear, because if we look objectively, you say, okay, comparing to 1941, we have nothing to fear. Yet we still have the desire to live life on the edge, so we grab onto different things that make us fear or anger or
Yeah, there are a lot of cases where Jordan Peterson talks about the need for adventure, the need to go out and slay the dragon and rescue the princess, and maybe these sound weird, but I do think they are rooted somewhere deep in the soul of a man, especially, and our corporate 9-to-5 lives don't really provide that in any way, and so that's a desire for us to seek.
and that's why we play organized sports.
Yeah, that's a
To beat someone,
competition
yes.
that has a clear result, that has clear winners and losers. Yeah, that's interesting.
You had another fear, and then it was.
Yeah, the second thing I thought about after the fear of missing out was the fear that we talked about last week, I think. And maybe we could call it the fear of setting goals, the fear of letting yourself down, the fear of saying, I'm gonna do this in this period of time, and not doing it. Maybe not really thinking that you're capable of doing it. Maybe fearing discomfort in a way. You know, when you really think about, okay, I'm gonna work out, I'm gonna eat right. Well, what if in a couple of days something happens and I'm gonna regret it. I'm gonna want to eat something. Isn't it better to just not have that goal? And I think it's absolutely not better, because staying in your comfort zone means staying the same, and it means getting worse in most cases, actually. And even though it's hard, and in my experience, I don't feel like doing the things that I was really passionate about yesterday within 12 or 24 hours. But I found out that I have the ability to do them if I really make the time. And maybe a good example was the goal that I set and we set last week of reading, of basically getting back to reading as a serious activity.
Did you
And
manage to?
I did. It's like my previous goal. I didn't do it 100%, so the goal was 50 pages a day, and I read I read at least 30 pages a day, which didn't get me to the goal, but
You're
it got me
200
back on track.
and you're 200 pages more than you were last week.
Yeah, exactly,
one.
and I'm almost done with one of the books from the pile, so that's
Nice.
really good. How about
Nice.
you?
I was away from the country for 3 days, so I had my book with me, but
Yeah,
I had no
it's
idea.
hard.
I was traveling with kids, and I thought, well, I'm waiting in the airport or in the airplane, but no, no way. But when I was at home, yes, I managed to. So, like half of the.
Okay. I keep thinking back to the idea of you need to compare yourself with who you were yesterday, and you said this several times, and I've read it in different places, and I think it's true. And the idea is to be 1% better today than you were yesterday, 2% better this week than you were last week. Yeah.
And about fear, we have. I think we should talk about this again. There's a lot of things to explore.
Yeah.
But for now, I think it's enough.
Yeah.
Nice talking to you, man.
You too. Okay.
You
So
too.
we'll see you next week, and we'll close it.